What's up YouTube? Ryan Panny here. Hope you guys are doing reasonably well. So a quick little intro video here to explain the premise of what you're about to hear and see, I suppose. So I recently reviewed the new Trivium record, What the Dead Men Say. And this is a band that I've been listening to for, God, like almost a decade and a half now. So needless to say, I had some strong opinions. Be sure to check that review out if you haven't yet. I'm really proud of that one. One of the things I bitched about, which, look, this probably doesn't affect the majority of fans' listening experience, but it continues to affect mine, so I chose to address it. The fact that the band, and Matt Heafy in particular, have just been blatantly recycling guitar solo licks over and over and over again for several records now. To a pretty extreme degree, too. Alright, let's get this thing on first, shall we? Okay, so I pointed to two things specifically that the band really beat to death. Number one is the second inversion 3-string sweep arpeggios, which I know that sounds like fucking gibberish to a lot of you, but they sound like this. Let me get on my neck pickup, so I sound super shreddy. They sound like this. You've heard that before. It's the most basic thing. It's like anybody who learns how to sweep pick, that's the first thing they do. So I bitched about that, but then more emphatically, I talked about the sort of warm-up exercise style triplet runs that, if you listen closely, the band have beaten to death over the years. You'll see, it's pretty funny. Of course, you can only verbally explain that kind of shit so much, so to further illustrate my point here, I've put together this little compilation for the triplet run specifically, because those are the worst offender. I've done the math, and they've done about twice as many of these licks as they have of the sweep arpeggio, so these win. Maybe we'll do a part 2 in the future, I don't know. There really are so many of these, just wait and see. So I did give the band a pass on some of the more like ambiguous ones, or the ones that were kind of quick that you'd barely notice, or the ones that are sort of like triplets mushed into quadruplets. Like there's some gray area that I gave them a pass on, and conversely there are probably a few that people watching who are familiar with guitar playing will probably be like, that doesn't really sound like what you're describing. So we'll have a little bit of debate maybe about like 10% of the ones I included here, whether they count or not, but trust me, after you watch this you will be convinced that I'm right, and then we can put this matter to bed and just move on with our lives. Or at least I can move on with my life, because I'm sure no one else cares this much. So here is a quick little guitar-based explanation as to what exactly you're listening for here. So this can be fun for anyone and not just fucking guitar nerds. So on a guitar, the easiest way to arrange the notes on a major or minor scale so they can be played the fastest and most efficient way is 3 notes per string. It sounds a little bit like this. Nice little happy major scale, right? So when you're learning guitar, after you learn this stupid little minor pentatonic bullshit, once you've graduated past that, the next thing you learn is the major and minor modes, which sound just like what I play, with 7 different variations. So naturally, if you want to play real fast and you want to be a big bad shredder, the first thing you learn is a few basic 3-note per string scale patterns, and then you sit there with a metronome and get them faster. Now, they're meant to be warm-up exercises, mostly, but if you're Matt Heafy, you can also throw them into every single one of your solos. So here are the 3 patterns, and I never play anymore, I'm sorry if I'm rusty, but here are what the 3 patterns sound like. So if the scale is like this, I'm going to go to E minor here. Right, if that's the scale, here are the 3 patterns that are the most basic thing you learn first, and perhaps not ironically, these are also 3 patterns that we're going to be listening for in Trivium songs. So, here's number 1. You've all heard it if you've listened to metal before. You just play, you can basically just repeat the second line of notes, so. That was sloppy as fuck. That's a little better. Still not great. So that is one that we're going to hear a lot. Here's the second one. You just repeat it twice. It's actually a little bit simpler than the first one. This one is the biggest offender of all of them. You'll hear it. So here's what it sounds like fast. So that's number 2. And then the last one, now we're getting really fancy here. It sounds a little bit like this. Do I look excited? Ugh. That was a little bit better. Let me turn that off. Okay, so those are the most basic 3-note per string shred patterns that you learn. Those 3 right there. And again, those are the ones that you're going to be listening for. They could be ascending. They could be descending. I know we're getting really complicated here, I know. They could be either direction on the fretboard. They could, God forbid, be string skipping. They could be a few things, but they're all going to sound like the three things I just played. And look, every shredder uses these. They're pretty much unavoidable if you want to play fast solos, especially if you're improvising. So, you know, you listen back to Paul Gilbert on a lot of that Racer X stuff in the 80s. There's a lot of this kind of stuff, the 3-note per string. Right? Zach Wilde, latter era Zach Wilde mostly does, there's one lick that he does a lot where it sounds like this. He does it really fucking fast, but basically that. And you go all the way back to like Mr. Crowley, right? The Ozzy song. You have Randy doing something like this. That was just me doing the same thing, but legato. So this stuff has been around forever. I don't fault any guitarist ever for using it. It's just the absurd degree to which Trivium repeat it is what we're making fun of here. And again, I do need to single out Matt Heafy specifically because there really is a huge difference between his playing and Corey, the other guitar player in Trivium. These licks you're about to hear are mostly Matt. And you can kind of notice because he always relies on that neck pickup. He always turns the guitar to sound very trebly, so it's, you know, John Petrucci style basically. And since I did these chronologically, you'll actually notice that it gets more and more blatant over time in the Trivium catalog. And I think that's just because Matt decided to focus more on being a great singer and great vocalist. And you see him make huge strides in that department on records where the guitar playing goes downhill, like, or at least for his guitar playing goes downhill, like Silence in the Snow. So I think he just focused on being a great singer and the lead playing kind of fell by the wayside. I don't know, you'd have to ask him. But again, the important caveats here, look, all guitarists repeat stuff. It is impossible not to, especially if you rely heavily on improvisation. Not everybody is like Ollie Herbert, rest in soul, who like wrote his solos as these little meticulous note-by-note compositions over months and months. So his solos almost never repeated stuff. A lot of guitarists just go in there with kind of a framework of what they're gonna do and just wail. And that's cool. It works for metal music. Only assholes like me care about this kind of stuff. All the great players, you will notice them repeating shit. Whether it's Randy Rhoads, this lick I just noticed he did a few times. Right, that dumb little pentatonic thing. Alexi Laiho has this one. That little like single string ascending quadruplet run. Zach Wilde has his pentatonic thing. Right? I mean, this is all in good fun. This is not a Trivium hate video, that's what I'm trying to say. I love these guys, I listened to them for years, but I want to make sure that other people know what's driving me so nuts, so I can just get it off my chest and at least expose it. Of course, as evidenced by Trivium's massive success, this kind of stuff is absolutely negligible when it comes to people enjoying and supporting your music. But it bothers the fuck out of me. This is my video, so I get to make fun of it. So without further ado, enjoy this compilation of mostly Matt Heafy playing the same exact thing for 15 years.